Well, at the beginning, we Mrs. Parks was arrested, and she being one of the senior citizens and a very nice person, they decided to get together because we had gotten tired of having so many things happen and nothing being done about it. So they just got together and decided to have a mass meeting. And after they had the meeting, they decided that they wouldn't ride the bus until they could get something done about it. I heard about her arrest on the news. Well, it was a broadcast over the Negro radio station. Well, the mass meeting was planned uh, on the radio, and they made the announcement, and they wanted all the people who were interested in being at the meeting to come to the Hope Street Baptist Church on Monday night at 7 o'clock, and that's what really happened. Well, at first we thought that they were going to ride, and we had, we didn't feel as if everybody was going to participate, but we was really surprised when everybody the first week didn't ride the bus. And then we knew then it would be a success. And so on that Sunday, they announced that they would have another mass meeting. It was really surprising because we thought, well, maybe some of the people would continue to ride the bus. But after all, they had been mistreated and been mistreated in so many different ways until I guess they were tired and they just decided that they just wouldn't ride. Well, you can take things and take things and take things. And we were dealing with a new generation, and this new generation had decided that they just had taken as much as they could. So they went and made plans, and they went and tried to talk with their high ups, and they decided that they didn't want to give any decent answers to the questions that they wanted answered, and so they decided they wouldn't ride the bus until they changed, and said that we'll have Negro bus drivers, and something could be done about the way that the people would be treated. And then they wanted to add another plan that said that first come, first served, and if you were seated in a seat that you didn't have to get up and give it to someone else, even though you had paid for it. But before then, it was always said, even after you paid, you would have to go around to the back door to go in. And they decided that they just was tired of it and they wouldn't do it anymore. Well, sometimes I walk by myself and sometimes I walk with different peoples. And I began to enjoy walking because for so long I guess that I had had this convenient riding until I had forgot about how well it would be to walk. Well, I had to walk, say, if I was going to town, I walk from Jericho Street to Dexter and back. And maybe some days, though, we would ride a cab. Yeah, a lot of times some of the young whites would come along and they would say, nigger, don't you know it's better to ride the bus than it is to walk? And we would say, no, cracker, no, we were to walk. No, in fact, it was really something that was a good experience for you because, for so long you had gotten where you depended on certain things and you felt like you couldn't do without them. But after a while, you became acquainted with what was in for you, and you decided that you would just do it. And you would pray, and the Lord opened so many ways for me. But see, because before the boycott, I couldn't drive. But after the bus boycott began, I was able to drive. And then I was able to save enough money to get a car. And then I was really a big shot because I felt like that I had come up in the world, being able to drive a car and say, well, I owned a car. And after being going to the mass meeting and listening at Reverend King tell you how to be and not to be mean and hateful, and to always pray and ask the Lord to give you spirit, whereas you wouldn't do things that you would regret later. And listening at him changed my whole life, because I was the kind of person who would be fiery. And I didn't mind fighting you. I didn't care who you was, white or black. But listening at him, I began to realize some of the things that my mother had taught me in the past. That you think twice before you do some things, because some things you do, you regret it later. And so by me being able to control my temper, I made a lot of friends that I never thought that I would have, white and black. Because, see, they were maid cooks, and they was the one that really and truly kept the bus running. And after the maids and the cooks stopped riding the bus, well, the bus didn't have any need to run, because the majority of the maids was in Cloverdale and Capitol Heights and Oak Park. And so instead of riding the bus, they would walk. And then they began to form a carpool. And once the carpool began, they lost completely interested in the bus. So that's why the bus boycott was a success. Well, we decided to ask people who didn't attend the mass meeting for donations. And they said they would, and we decided that we would get a club mezzanine. Rich had it on the west side, and I had it on the south side, which is this side. And the south side would always try to have more money than the west side. And so we decided we would name it the Club from Nowhere. And so the Club from Nowhere was able to report maybe 150, 125, or 75, or maybe $200 or more a week. And which was very nice of the people, because so many of the people who didn't attend the mass meeting would give the donations to help keep the carpool going. Well, being a committee of one, you didn't have to worry about somebody taking or somebody doing something that would cause a disturbance or something. And so I decided that we wouldn't have any officers. It would just be one. And I collect the money, and they would give it to me. And I'd always report it at the mass meeting the same day that they would give it to us, and so it never was any conflict. Well, I attended just about all of them. It was really very interested in it, because you could go and you could learn about so many things that you didn't know exist, and so many people would tell you how they were being mistreated, and they were glad that they were able to come up and not have to take the same treatments that they once had taken and was afraid to admit. And then they would have their prayer meeting, and then they would have great speakers, and Reverend King, Reverend Abernathy, Shuttleworth, and just all of them was very good speakers. Well, it was something that you can't really express. It's something that was just all over you, and it was just something that you was good to be able to participate in. And I think the very first song that they sang was "When I've Gone the Last Mile of the Way." It was quite a few people. In other words, it was so many of them, the church wouldn't hold them all. They were outside as well as inside. I would always go early. The mass meeting was supposed to start at 7, but I would always get there between 5 and 5:30. And I had one special seat where I would sit all the time, so if I wasn't there early enough to get the seat, somebody would save it. Well, we felt that we had accomplished something that no one ever thought would ever happen in the city of Montgomery. And being able to ride the bus and sit in a place on the bus that you desire was something that had never happened before. And it was a queer feeling. In the beginning, you thought, well, maybe it wouldn't last, but still you would give it a try. And we did. And we didn't have any incidents. And nobody, created any kind of disturbance or anything. And that was why it was a success. Well, that was when they had the city council meeting and they made the announcement. And they're on the WCOV and WSFA TV stations, and the news would come on. And when anything special happened, they always would interrupt and bring it to you, so that you would know what was happening. I was cooking, and I was listening to the gospel music, and they had said that they stopped to say that the boycott would be ended, and they would have a mass meeting. And so I decided that I was just so excited, I just didn't believe it. So I ran and turned the TV on. And just as I turned the TV on, they were telling that the boycott had ended and we would have the mass meeting at 7 o'clock. And I went outside and asked my neighbor, and she said yes. And we were so happy about everything happening and no conflicts, and nobody hadn't been, rearrested and put in jail or anything. Well, I believe Montgomery would have been integrated but without a boycott because the people had gotten tired of the way they had been mistreated. For instance, my son, he worked at the Jackson Hospital, and ever since he had started working, he had walked to work. And he was on his way to work to Jackson Hospital, and some policemen was in there, and they got him and they beat him and arrested him and put him in jail and said that he was trying to integrate the parks. And we didn't know exactly what to do. And so we went and we talked with several people. And so they decided that we would put in a suit. Integration would have occurred anyway because the younger generation wasn't going to take the things that the older generation had taken. And it was better to have the boycott than to let the younger generation take it over because might have been a lot of conflict. I said I was glad that, well, we was glad because we discovered that we had a lot of white friends that we didn't realize that were interested in us. And the only reason that they couldn't let it be known publicly before the boycott was because they thought that maybe they would be isolated from their white friends. So after the boycott was, and then they found that we had so many white friends, then they could let it be known that they were really and truly interested in you as a human being, not of your color, but as a human being. They were very active in helping you. Anything that you started that they thought was worthwhile, they would help you and help you make it be a success.